Hey everybody, it is Michaela Westbrook with the Optimum West Realty Group today. And as you can see on our screen, I am going to briefly go over the 1 to 4 family residential contract, also known as the resale, the offer, whatever you want to term it. But this is our Texas Real Estate Commission promulgated form. And I want to reiterate, anytime you see me post these documents, please remember, me sharing this video is in no way, shape, or fashion meant to replace you as our client reading through this document, okay? As you've heard me say in other videos, these are legally binding contracts, so they need to be treated with that respect. This is an 11-page document. I am not going to read this to you word for word, but I am going to highlight what you can expect to see in your 1 to 4 family residential resale contract so that you can know what to expect. So come with me on this journey. First of all, the parties. We will have the seller's legal names, and then we need your legal name. Again, the name that is found on your birth certificate is what we need to put on this contract. You will notice that when you read the address, you're gonna see the regular address that you're used to seeing when you address something on an envelope, but then you also have the legal description of the property. And then it goes into some very important information over what is going to be a part of the contract, some terms. And then that way, when you get to part D, if the seller says, we are not going to have this item a part of the sale, it'll be listed there. So you'll kind of understand that as you read through that a little bit. In case they put any of those exclusions, it's because it's something mentioned in B or C. Okay. And then reservations, you may or may not need to deal with that depending on where your property is situated. But essentially, that has to do with the oil, gas, other minerals that might be on that property. So then the sales price. Previously, we talked about an earnest deposit and an option fee deposit. Okay. And so that does not factor into the sales price. The sales price is what are you putting down? What are you financing? That's what C equals. So if you have a $200,000 house that you're looking at and you say, I am going to put down 10% of that $200,000 and I am going to finance the other 80%, or excuse me, did I say 10%? Yeah, 10%. So then you're going to finance the other 90%. That's what's going to be in 3. So again, if you had a $200,000 house that you were looking at and you were going to put 10% down, you would finance the other 90% of that. And then if there's any type of lease on the home, this would be mentioned in here. The earnest money and termination option fee. So the earnest money is your good faith deposit, in case you didn't see that on our other video. It's a good faith deposit saying, I am serious about buying this house, and this is how serious I am. Okay. And your option fee says, but I would like the option to terminate, and this is how much money I'm going to give you to be able to do it. And those terms are located here in section 5. The title policy and survey. So depending on what market we're in, depends on who's paying for that. So you can look down there to see who is going to be paying for it. The title company that the listing agent, generally it's the listing agent that chooses the title company, that'll be mentioned there in section 6. And if there's any other things that need to be addressed in that, like the shortage, who's going to pay for that in case the actual title and survey need to be changed. All right, so that is all through here. Right here, section D. This is very important, buyers. Especially if you want to put in a pool, if you want to have a business that will generate a ton of traffic in that neighborhood, or something out of the ordinary, you would want to put that there. That way, your buyer's agent, which would be either me or Gary or whoever else is on our team, and the listing agent will know, like, oh, they want a pool on this property at some point. So if they can't have a pool, we have to let them know. Or they'd like to run a tutoring company. And so that's going to generate traffic in and out. Maybe they're going to serve 10, 15 students at one time. Well, then that's now traffic coming into this residential area. Well, we have to check that, that can be done. So you also can tell about how much time you need in case the objection cannot be made and you cannot use that. As you can hear, King is like, yep, got to know that. And so then title notices to include, is this an HOA home? Is it, in one of those you have to be notified? And these are some other things that talk about where the property is situated and some things you need to know. Now, the property's condition. Let's talk about that. You are hopefully going to take our advice and get an inspection. I don't care if it's a new build or not. You get an inspection. It just protects you. Okay, so here's the deal. There's some things that you have to be notified of. The seller's disclosure. If the property qualified to need one, that's all in there. But we want to talk about the acceptance of the property. So when we take you to look at properties and you see something and it doesn't seem like it's right, or it needs to be repaired, we need to mention that right away in the offer. We cannot wait until the inspection comes back and say, oh, you know what? I also want that broken window repaired. Well, the window was broken when we went to go see the house and it wasn't mentioned. So please, if there's something that you think should be mentioned, please just let us know, because we can say, okay, well, they already said they were going to repair that. We still want to list it in there, or, or something like that. Like, it shouldn't cost them too much. They may do that. And it also depends on the market we're in. If it's a seller's market, be prepared to not get a ton of stuff done. And then even in a buyer's market, you want to be very careful because you may not be the only buyer looking at that house. And they might go with something that says, you know what, they're not asking for this laundry list. So, definitely ask our guidance, and, we'll help you to navigate those waters. And so then it talks about lender required repairs and treatments, completion of repairs and treatments, things like that to clear up this contract before it goes to close. So we'll talk all about that. And then definitely in a buyer's market, think about the residential service contracts if that's something that you want to negotiate for. Brokers and sales agents disclosure. So if I were buying a house, but I was buying it from a close relative, to be specific, sales agents, spouse, parent, child, we have to disclose those things. Other than that, we're not really protecting the public if we don't disclose certain things like that. Closing, the closing date. We're always hoping that a contract will close on time. Generally, rule of thumb, it takes to about a month. There are some title companies who might be able to push that through a little faster, but remember, at closing, it's not just like we have the option to just speed things up. There's the mortgage lender, which hopefully you're in great contact with them and getting them all the information they need when they ask for it, or hopefully you've already prepared some of it because you've talked with the mortgage lender. They've told you what you're going to need. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing what they ask when they ask. We're about halfway through. Possession. We can't sign the paperwork and be like, we're done, yay. Nope, that doesn't work like that. Generally, it's going to be upon closing and funding unless you have something specific that needs to occur, like a temporary lease. And that's a that's a whole nother thing, and it only applies to certain situations. And so then it talks about smart devices and special provisions. Generally speaking, you are going to see that blank if if you are an attorney or an attorney is helping out with that, that is something that will be discussed at that point. But other than that, we don't need to worry about that. Settlements and other expenses. This is generally like a seller's concession, and it depends on what you need it for and if it's available to be used. That's all mentioned in section 12. Prorations, taxes, HOA funds that are needed, all of that, that kind of talks about that in section 13. Casualty loss. Whatever it is you need to do, put it out to the universe. We hope that nothing happens to that house between the time your offer is accepted and closing date. And we don't want anything to happen after that either, but definitely read over that section, because that just addresses it. It would just be kind of a shame of, of course, if something happened and you were really hoping to get into that house. So it talks about default, mediation, attorney fees, and then escrow basically kind of talks about what the escrow agent does and what's going to happen with them. That's very important because that's where your earnest money is. And so definitely read that one. Representations, all covenants, representations, and warranties in this contract survive closing. If any representation of seller in this contract is untrue, on the closing date, the seller will be in default. Unless expressly prohibited by written agreement, seller may continue to show the property and receive and negotiate and accept backup offers. Please be aware of that. And then it talks about the federal tax requirements. If a seller is a foreign person, as defined by the Internal Revenue Code and its regulations, or if a seller fails to deliver an affidavit or certificate of non-foreign status to buyer, that seller is not a foreign person, then buyer shall withhold from sales proceeds an amount sufficient to comply with applicable tax law and deliver the same to the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, together with appropriate tax form. Feels like it though, doesn't it? Internal Revenue Service regulations require filling written reports if currency in excess of specified amounts is received in the transaction. So basically, if you live in a cultural melting pot like we do here in Texas, specifically DFW, you definitely want to make sure you let us know if you qualify as a foreign person if you're a seller, and that's kind of like another video for the sellers, but just so you're aware. And then it talks about the notices. We try to protect your privacy as much as possible, but we will list your phone number, email, or fax. If it's a special situation, we will get guidance, celebrity status, person who needs their identity protected, that sort of thing. And then the agreement of parties. So basically there are addenda that we may need to attach, such as third party financing. Another one that you will probably see in this is like fixture leases. Any kind of notifications that fall in through here, that's what we need to put down for you. And then consult an attorney before signing. TREC rules prohibit real estate license holders from giving legal advice. Read this contract carefully. And then if you have an attorney, go ahead and list them there. Okay? You just let us know. We'll have them notified. And then it talks about when the contract is executed, the effective date. That's very important. And then the signatures. And then this is for broker information. So we just put the information of who we are, who we represent, and then the other side on the seller side there. And then your title company takes care of this page because this talks about your receipt of earnest money. And That's very important. So we have now just gone through this particular contract. If you have questions, please reach out, getwestbrook@kw.com, or our phone number 469-316-8366. So with that, we hope we've given you a great run through. I know it was long. Thanks for hanging in there. And remember, have a great day. We can't wait to get you to close.